MALC. The BDO Show is coming to the MLC conference. We will be there live on April 15th. You're going to get to meet all of us and also hear what we think about the current SBA lending environment. And we have a very special show planned just for you, but you're going to miss it if you're not there on April 15th at the MALC conference. See you soon.
Warning. The views and opinions expressed in this program are our own and/or those of our guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our employers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
You guys never anticipated this.
No, it dropped like a bomb.
The rule change came out of thin air. It came out of nowhere.
I still am very bullish about this, Sterling. I still think that it's going to be a great opportunity for us as SBA lenders, but also for our entrepreneur community to take advantage of.
I think that is an extremely optimistic view.
I'm an extremely optimistic guy, brother.
He's also got a couple swigs of bourbon in him right now, too. So.
Hey, now.
Next episode, I'll try and get a haircut before.
Oh, is that why you were rocking the cap today?
You know, I'm rocking the cap. And shout out to my boy Jonathan Gonzalez, man.
All right.
Capital. He is not a sponsor of the show, so this is a free plug, Jonathan. So you owe me at least a deal. Not that you weren't going to send it anyways, but yeah, you know.
My hairstyling is compliments of Rogaine Moose.
We got to get you a one-way flight to Turkey, my friend. We're going to get you taken care of.
All right, if you're out there and you want to do a boys trip to Turkey, go get some plugs going. PM me, DM me. Let's go. Let's get a group of guys together. We'll Airbnb this. We'll go all get plugs together, all right? DM me. Let's go. Go ahead.
Okay.
Em. Make it happen.
Right. Sorry for my lack of
dance in the background and have a little cocktail while you do the intro.
Dance and drink. At least it's better than you in a corner with a book.
The episode's not over yet. We might get there.
Oh my God.
The Grandpa two
dancing. There's the opening clip. Boom, start the episode.
It's my white boy two-step in the corner.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the BDO Show, a podcast for passionate BDOs wanting to level up their game with advice and stories from battle-tested BDOs. I'm your host, Emily Detor, and I'm here with my fellow co-hosts, Ryan Kroge and Sterling Birdsong. At the beginning of each episode, we're always going to remind you to like and subscribe. Well, smash that like button and go ahead and send your topics and suggestions over to the BDO Show at artofsba.com. And do not forget to check out our whole family of shows, SBA Today, which airs live every single week, as well as our flagship program, the Art of SBA Lending Podcast. Okay, BDOs, it's story time. And no, I am not talking about the time Sterling tried to finance a zoo. You'll have to go back to episode 3 for that. I'm talking about the story that your borrower has in their head, and they may need that extra boost to finally get it onto paper. Rapid Business Plans is a known and trusted partner that can help them do just that. Whether your borrowers are working towards acquiring a business, starting one up, or expanding and making moves, within just a few short days, Rapid Business Plans will deliver powerful, fast SBA and USDA-ready business plans with projections and assumptions. If they need an export business plan for an ITL loan or a feasibility study, they have you covered there too. We know this process is not a walk in the park, or should I say zoo. Let the Rapid Business Plans team take some of the wild out of the process so that your borrower's vision and passions can come to life. For more information or to get acquainted, email Bethany McClellan at bethany@rapidbusinessplans.com or click the link in the show notes. Okay, so today's episode, we're going to get into something that recently changed. On March 7th, the SBA changed their rules regarding eligibility and lending, specifically to foreign nationals. Entities receiving an SBA loan must now be 100% owned by a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. At the same time, the U.S. is imposing new tariffs on imported goods from certain countries. Today, we are going to talk about the impacts of these changes and how they could shape the SBA landscape in the immediate future. All right, Sterling, why don't you go ahead and kick us off and we can talk about some of the eligibility requirements, questions that people may have regarding non-U.S. citizen and the changes.
Yeah, so the big change is that now it's required that any entity that receives SBA financing is 100% owned by either U.S. citizens or people who are green card holders or legal permanent residents. So the change there is that historically it only had to be 51%. So what would happen is you would see people who you had a feeling were getting propped up by somebody who maybe had deeper pockets, but was not a foreign national. And that person would be a 51% owner. And then, magically the money would come from outside of the country. And that person would be a 49% owner or some type of minority ownership structure. That is not allowed anymore. So everybody who gets an SBA loan now is either going to be a US citizen or a legal permanent resident, what we also call a green card holder. So it's actually going to be a massive impact, I think, to particularly some certain segments of SBA lending, particularly the hotel space. The hotel space, you see a lot of people where there's some foreign money that's flowing into those types of deals. I was talking to a buddy of mine who is a CDC lender, and CDCs do a lot of hotel lending, and he was saying that there's like a bunch of people in his pipeline right now that he's working on, and his deals are going to 100% be impacted by that rule change. And look, the rule change came out of thin air. It came out of nowhere.
You guys never anticipated this.
No, it dropped like a bomb. Right.
It arrived on Friday and it was effective on Friday.
Yeah.
It said, surprise, this is the rule now.
Effective
immediately.
Pretty
And
much.
so, I mean, I know 7A lenders that it impacted as well. Our good buddy Austin Porter over at the internet was in the group chat talking about how he lost, $4 million off of his pipeline.
$4 million loan. That was a slam dunk.
Sorry, Austin.
It's a $4 million slam dunk loan that he's not going to be able to get done now. And I mean, in reality, what are those people going to do? They're going to, try and rework the ownership or something along those lines and try and get that person off the cap table. I mean, listen, banks aren't stupid, right? They know that if the loan was done a certain way a week ago and now it's back this week, and all of a sudden the people who are foreign investors are magically off the table, there's probably some type of backdoor action that's going on. And people probably have ownership and it's just off paper. So at a very minimum, it's going to cause a massive disruption. I don't think that it's a great thing for the program. I'm not sure it's a great thing for the country in terms of,
it's not a good thing for America.
It's not a good thing for America because money being invested in this country is a good thing for Americans. Mm-hmm. We want money from other places flowing into this country. People from other places know that America is a safe place for them to invest. These people from South America, these people from the Middle East,
from India, from China.
There is unrest in a lot of those other countries. And they know that, politically things can change very quickly, and money that was invested there may not be worth as much tomorrow as it is today. And that obviously brings a lot of instability and risk into play in investing. And so, that money was finding a way to come into the United States, which really ultimately enriches all of us. When there's more money and more cash in circulation here in the United States. So overall, I understand why they're doing what they're doing. This is part of their America First initiative. And the truth is that more than half the country voted for this. And so that is what they partially voted for, was putting America first. But I hope that they're not so short-sighted into seeing that, this actually is not putting America first. What it is it's excluding a lot of people from being able to invest in America. And so they're going to have to go somewhere else first with their money.
And it's excluding people from becoming American. Because let's face it, right? If you're an immigrant and you're coming here on a work visa, or you're coming here on a different type of visa, and you want to invest in a business, you take your hard-earned money, you take all your family's money. The vast majority of my clientele are from the Middle East or from India, right? And a lot of them that are first generation that are coming over here on visas, they're taking a lot of their family's money because, like you said, Sterling, a lot of these places have instability in the market, but they know America's a safe place. We'll invest it in a business. We'll come here. We'll buy a business, and at 49%, you can be an owner at the business last Friday, and you can get with some other family members or some other close friends here that are permanent resident aliens or U.S. citizens, and you can have that pathway to U.S. citizenship. It is legitimately a pathway to U.S. citizenship, being a business owner here in America. And the fact that the SBA would allow for this type of a policy change to only allow green card holders and U.S. citizens to utilize the SBA program, I think it's an injustice. It's an injustice to immigration. It's an injustice to business owners across the country. And it's an injustice for what this country was built on by immigrants. All right. So that's how we were built. That's how businesses flourish. And quite frankly, I can see this really kind of pull back, like you said, not only capital utilization here in the country and investment here in the country, but really expansion as well. Because I know a lot of immigrants, a lot of green card holders, all right, or U.S. citizens that are here that have family members from other countries own businesses, right? And in order to get a fast path to U.S. citizenship or green card holding is to come in and acquire a business with that family member and be a 20 to 40% owner. It's a fast pass. All right. And once you become that U.S. citizen, you're staying here, you're paying taxes here. All right. Let's face it, you're paying taxes when the tax base grows, the less we all have to pay as individuals, right? I mean, they're already showing that by reducing the amount of spending in government right now, which I also think is great. But at the same time, reduce the spending, increase the tax base, we'll all pay less taxes. It's great. So I really do think this is an injustice. Will it impact the SBA loan program directly? In certain industries, it will. In other industries, let's face it, these are entrepreneurs we're dealing with, right? Entrepreneurs find a way to do business. They find a way to change. They find a way to adapt. And with this change, they'll find a way to adapt and make money. And that's kind of my viewpoint on it.
Long term, I don't really see it as an issue for volume. I think that the volume will, maybe there'll be some disruption in the immediate future because, like I said, deals that are already in the pipeline, it's hard to readjust cap tables at this point, at least not without switching lenders, if we're being honest. But I think that in the long run, the volume will be okay in terms of SBA lending. But like you said, I do think that it does hurt citizenship options for people to come into this country because we've seen it, especially with some of the hotel folk. I mean, this is like their whole gravy train.
What happens, like Austin, for instance, like they're going to buy a hotel and they've done all this work with the bank and the bank was just like, sorry, you're done. It just
Yeah,
pull like
that's it.
and
Pull
they
the
can't go
commitment.
to
You're done.
anybody
I'm
else.
sorry.
Yeah, the loan is no longer eligible, and there's no way for them to get SBA financing anywhere else as of Friday. And so, your choice as an entrepreneur in that case is that essentially whoever it is that's the foreign national, they have to get off the cap table. They cannot be an owner in your entity moving forward. And so, unfortunately, what's going to end up happening is that people will still find ways to loophole the system because that's exactly what people will do eventually. They're still going to find a way to get foreign money into a deal.
Silent partners,
Silent
off
partners,
off sheet operating agreements.
all that type of stuff now is going to be brought into play. But the one thing that it will stop is, the citizenship piece of it, which I think ultimately is probably what they were aiming for, maybe in the first place. I don't know, but that's certainly going to be a piece of it that will be stopped.
You think that they were trying to crack down on people becoming US citizens and like getting rid of
I don't know. Honestly, it's tough to speculate on that. I don't even know that it's that.
But what they're trying to crack down on are individuals coming over here illegally and being able to take advantage of owning a business. But if they're coming over here illegally and owning a business, they're not getting an SBA loan anyway. Because
Right.
Right.
to get an SBA loan, even if you're a minority partner, you still have to go through the whole what's that, the G345 form that they brought back. You still have to go and verify your visa status. So I don't understand why this change was so necessary to the SBA program. And by the way, from a guy who spent 16 years in financial institutions and branches where I had to take certain type of classes every quarter, if a financial institution were to impose this type of rule as their lending guidelines or as their depository guidelines, this would be illegal. This would be called something disparage impact, meaning a rule that they would make would impact a certain group, a certain minority group disparagingly and be illegal in the eyes of the federal government. But since the federal government did it, it's all good, right? But if a local institution were to make a rule like this, be completely illegal.
And one thing I will say is that I was looking kind of back at my pipeline and some of the deals that I've done, and well, first of all, we're not a hotel lender, so we don't really do much in that space. But honestly, this wouldn't have impacted my production that much. Just to be honest, I don't really do that many loans where there's somebody who is a foreign national that's involved in the ownership group.
And especially in my space, right? I do a lot of businesses, and I want to say 80% across the board of my businesses I'm doing with individuals that are first generation Middle Easterner or Indian. All right, first generation. But they're all usually US citizens or they have their green card. It's very rare that I come across a file where I have to do the 51-49% rule, the old rule. So the same thing with me. My production's not going to be impacted.
So just to be clear, we're not complaining about this because it's hurting our pockets.
Right.
We
We're
are
complaining
we are
about
saying
the
that
social economic impact.
yes,
that
we're
this
saying
is
it's not.
happening.
It's overall not a net positive for the country,
Correct.
in our opinion, because it's good for money and entrepreneurs to want to come to this country.
I'll say it again. It's good for a path to citizenship. Anything for immigration that's going to be a great source and a great path to citizenship, I'm all for, because let's face it, that's what this country was built on. This country was built by immigrants. This country was put together by immigrants. So it should be very immigrant friendly, regardless of what country they're from. If they're coming over the right way, they're getting the right visas, they're doing the right things, then let's promote it, right? And business ownership is one of those paths.
So a question just popped into my head. If you are an immigrant in this category right now, and you have an SBA loan and something happens with it, how does that all play out down the road?
So March 6th and prior, if you closed and you were 49%, you were a visa holder, you're grandfathered in. You're fine.
Right.
You
Okay.
fall under the old guard. Don't even worry about it. Don't sweat about it. You don't have to, panic. You fall under the old guard.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
so
won't be
they're
getting an SBA refinance anywhere.
Right. Yeah. You won't be able to
Yeah,
refi.
that's what I
locked
was gonna
in.
say. My
It
next
is what
question was
it
like,
is
what about a
now.
refinance?
But I do want to bring up one thing. I did have a conversation with one of our other SBA lenders here at the internet. There is a common misconception that I just want to clear up. So takes advantage of all beneficial owners. 100% of beneficial owners must be green card holders or US citizens. But, and this is mutually exclusive.
Hey guys, we have a special announcement for anybody involved in M&A transactions. Our partner, Peak Business Valuation, have put together a resource just for BDO Show listeners, and they're giving it away for free. It lists out the rule of thumb formulas, or as Kroge would like to say, the down and dirty, for some of the most common industries that SBA lenders finance. I promise you it's going to come in handy. Kroge's literally still using the one he got from Nagel in 2002. By the way, if you're not thinking about evaluation at the pre-screen phase, you are missing the boat. A lot of BDOs tend to focus on the debt service coverage and they're missing the valuation completely. That's a rookie move and it will become a problem. As a consultative BDO, you should have a sense of whether the business is going to value out. And Peak's handy dandy rule of thumb is here to help. Go to peakbizval.com/BDO show to get yours today.
But in E-Tran, you only have to verify 81%.
81%.
All right. That doesn't mean that 81% have to be U.S. Green cards or citizens. All right. 100% have to be green card holders or U.S. citizens. But
Yep.
you only have to verify 81%.
And
in
prior
E-Tran.
it was 51%.
And prior was 51%. But they're mutually exclusive. So verifying them in E-Tran, as much as you possibly can, you should verify 100%. Verify 100% in E-Tran. Common wisdom will tell you that in the SBA world, you have to verify 100% in E-Tran. But if you're having an issue with one of the person's driver's license or ID or whatever, and they're like 15%, no sweat. You can still close it. All right. I want to make sure that line, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. They are mutually exclusive, people. Two separate rules. All right. 100% have to be U.S. citizens or green card holders.
Okay. And now our other part of this that we were sort of going to get into is let's talk about how tariffs will affect the SBA lending space as well. And Kroge loves to talk about tariffs, by the way.
He might be the only person who loves tariffs. Let's hear about this.
To talk about them. He
Yeah,
loves to talk about them.
Let me give a real quick synopsis of what a tariff. So a tariff is going to be a tax. It is a legitimate tax on imports into this country from foreign countries. And the companies here that are importing those goods have to pay that tax to the federal government. And the majority of the time, those all the time, if they're a smart organization, they're going to pass those taxes on to us, the American people. So the cost of goods externally are going to rise for us. However,
I'm really waiting to hear how this is good. I'm still waiting.
this is good for the SBA world. All right.
Oh,
so
okay.
This is good for SBA lending. So what should happen is more companies should start bringing those products made here in America. Should, to avoid these taxes, because a lot of these taxes are hefty. I mean, the majority of them, steel and aluminum to Canada, is 25%. That's a huge savings if you're doing it in bulk and you bring those stamping plants, those tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that use raw steel, raw aluminum for the automotive industry, bringing those jobs here to America to all of a sudden be sweet eligibility for SBA lending. That's awesome. You're going to see a lot of local companies that deal in certain realms of steel, aluminum, that do it in small batches, all of a sudden start to expand. They're going to need money for property, plants, equipment. They're going to need working capital so they can start taking this overload, because a lot of these companies that are importing them from other countries, they're going to start doing it right here in America. They're going to be creating jobs. They're going to be creating products, and they're going to be creating raw materials right here. And it's all going to be eligible for SBA expansion. Now, I get it. It's going to increase costs in the short term. Now, supposedly the federal government's doing things on the other side, decreasing the monetary supply, increasing the value of the dollar, decreasing spending that's supposed to offset the increase to our pocketbooks as U.S. citizens. It depends on what book of economics that you like to play in. Personally, I'm very agnostic when it comes to that because I can kind of see both sides. But as a SBA lender, I'm super excited about this because it's going to bring jobs to America, it's going to bring products to America, and it's going to bring more opportunities for SBA dollars to be spent here in America. That's what I like.
Fair enough. So what I would say is that, the other side of this coin is that all of us SBA lenders out there also have portfolios. And so inside of those portfolios, we have loans that we've made in the past. And hopefully most of those loans are performing. And so when you have massive changes to the economic climate like tariffs, where I mean, some of these tariffs that I've heard about could be potentially ridiculous, like 50% tariffs on steel was what I heard about yesterday. And so when you have borrowers who are going about their business and paying you on time, and then all of a sudden there's a massive change to the way that they do business, that could hurt your portfolio. And that could hurt your bank. And that means that potentially defaults would rise, which means that SBA then has to honor guarantees, which means that that could also potentially hurt the program long term as well, and also hurt the banks that we work for, which could leave us in a position where our banks are also willing to lend less and take on less risk because of the environment with tariffs and because of the current political atmosphere where there is a lot more instability. And we don't know on a weekly basis what tariffs are going to be in play and what tariffs are not going to be in play. Because I do get that, yeah, a lot of the cost is passed on to the end user eventually, but any change causes disruption. And in the immediate impact, if you're somebody who's bringing steel into this country for construction projects, for example, your cost is still going to jump through the roof. And you are going to have to be the one who pays that cost and then eventually hope that you can pass that on to a customer later on down the road. But your cash crunch is now. And so that is going to cause some issues, particularly for people who already have loans, but also people who are in the midst of building materials as well, and ordering building materials and actually doing construction projects and trying to get them to the finish line. There's a double-edged sword to this. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Ryan, in terms of, yeah, long-term bringing more into the country is probably good for us as SBA lenders. But when you think about the institution and the money that they've already lent, that they've already committed to, that is a real risk now of a portfolio starting to have legitimate issues.
And I will agree with you if they don't make the right choices up front. So, unlike the whole eligibility of non US citizens change that was immediate the day of, anybody everywhere knew that tariffs were coming since November. They've known tariffs were coming since November. They may not have known the details, but they knew they were coming. So, most business owners here in this country that have to deal with imported products should have started making changes back then. They should have started making pricing changes and they should have started making sourcing changes to be able to adapt for this. Because, like I said it earlier, entrepreneurs adapt, they change, and they take advantage of new changes. And what I'm hoping is that with these new tariffs, that the borrowers in my portfolio have already made the changes. They've already made the changes, the pricing changes, the sourcing changes, everything that they needed to do to keep their costs and their margins the same and to be able to easily adapt to this. Now, what I'm also hoping is that they see some type of arbitrage, right? That they can take advantage of other industries within their own, get better vertically integrated, get better horizontally integrated to start stacking on some of these different opportunities that are coming to the US to expand their ways of making money. I'm going to take COVID, for example, right? I had an auto manufacturer that used to make windshields for cars. And when COVID hit, a lot of that stopped. A lot of car production stopped. We all know that, right? So they took a lot of the equipment that they had, started replacing it with plexiglass, and started making shields for dealerships and all types of different hospitals and everything else. So they adapted.
Restaurants.
Restaurants, everything. They adapted. They saw that their production was stopping. They were not making this part for the windshield, but they could retool, readapt, and start making plexiglass for hospitals, restaurants, offices, and everything else. And they didn't miss a beat. And they kept going. Same is going to happen for this. We've got some of the smartest people in this country, and we've got some great entrepreneurs that are going to take advantage, and they're going to make a lot of money off of these tariffs. They're going to start growing businesses here in the country. They're going to start new companies here in the country to take advantage of the new products that are going to be made here, and they're going to be able to diversify what they're already making. So I still am very bullish about this, Sterling. I still think that it's going to be a great opportunity for us as SBA lenders, but also for our entrepreneurial community to take advantage of it.
I think that is an extremely optimistic view.
I'm an extremely optimistic guy, brother.
I think
He's also got a couple swigs of bourbon in him right now, too. So.
Hey, now. I'm drinking my pH balanced water right now.
Yeah.
No, and listen, we can only hope that that's the way that things are going to pan out. But I think that in reality, things don't always go as well as they do in your optimistic view. We're talking about November. November wasn't really that long ago. That was like 5 months ago. And so, to say that people are going to change their entire business model and the way they operate within a 5 month span, or that people who are in the midst of a construction project are going to magically start sourcing steel
Especially
from somewhere else
startups, too.
halfway through.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different scenarios. And I mean, even like one of my customers who sells coffee, he has 8 coffee shops, and he was like freaked out about the tariffs on Colombia that lasted all of like an hour, right? It never really truly went into effect. It was just a threat. But, that would have 100% impacted his business because he sells Colombian coffee, right? And so there's so many businesses out there that will be impacted by this. And yeah, I do agree that some of them will be able to pivot. And let's be honest, some entrepreneurs are better than others. Not everybody is created equal. And unfortunately, when the tide goes out, you do see who's been swimming naked. And so we are going to find out who really are fantastic entrepreneurs, but also who has the ability to pivot based on the business that they chose initially. Because I don't think that it's necessarily so easy for every single industry to pivot, and especially not within a 5 month time frame or warning from the government that tariffs could potentially be coming. Because that's the thing is that there's a lot of pump faking going on. It's like, oh, we're going to put these tariffs on so-and-so, and they're going to go into effect on this date. And then this date comes, and then all of a sudden there's an
It gets
agreement
extended.
that we're not
Yeah.
going to. Yeah. And
change it.
so, maybe they keep on kicking that can down the road. Maybe they don't. But, for people to make concrete changes to their business based on a, coulda, shoulda, woulda, maybe will, maybe won't type of a scenario, it's very difficult. and I speak as not just an SBA lender, but also as an entrepreneur. When you're actually in the trenches and you're doing something on a daily basis, it can be extremely difficult to pivot and essentially, turn the boat around. So I do appreciate the optimistic view, and I think that that certainly will be the case for some, but for many, I do think that they will be detrimentally impacted.
And I don't disagree. I think for many, they will be detrimentally impact in the short term, but I think in the long term, this is going to be something that's going to be better for the country. I think it's going to help us from our tax base. I think it's going to help us from a job base. Maybe replace half of those jobs, or if not most of those jobs that were just let go in the federal government. So I think in the long term, this is going to benefit America better than in the short term. And I do think that there will be some short term pain. There always is when they're making sweeping changes like this. So I don't disagree with you on that, Sterling. But I think
I hope so right now, and I hope that people want these jobs,
yeah.
because there's one thing about jobs being available, but people actually wanting these jobs and working these jobs is a completely different thing.
Hey
And I
man,
talk
I
about, like,
flipped burgers as a teenager. I did not want that job, but you know what? I did that job because I needed to make some money. I worked
We all
security,
did jobs
dude.
as
I
teenagers we
worked
didn't want to
Listen.
do.
security, and I was not as buff as I am right now. And I was a little scared white boy, and I did security, and I hated that job. Hated
A
that job.
five foot
All right.
seven redhead security
Hey,
guard, I
hey,
would not take
hey.
you seriously at
I'm
all.
5'10", all right, on the best day ever. I've been doing some stretching, all right. Yeah, you don't
it was like
want
an
this
angry little
fiery
troll doll.
redhead coming after you. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
it
my
was tough.
gosh.
I
I
hated
would have
that job,
kicked
but
you
I
to
did it.
Cancun and back.
Yeah,
Wait, I was going to ask,
don't go into
with
the
like
bridge.
with these changes and tariffs and all the input, like the worry, do we think that the rates will ever be affected, like in a bad way?
I'm not sure, but hold on. Let me just say this one thing about the jobs thing before we move on, because so I own a May franchise, right? It's one of the two franchises that I own, and so I'm literally been going through this with the hiring. It's basically like a hiring crisis right now for my May business, where we lost a couple of people at the same time, and all of a sudden we have no shortage of people who want their house cleaned, but we are having the hardest time finding people who actually want to clean houses. I mean, I sent out on Monday, no joke, over 100 invitations to come in for job interviews this week. So far, from the people that I sent out 100, I would say probably 30 or 40 of them actually responded. And from those ones that responded, they actually said that they would come in. We had 18 of them show up. We hired 5 from those 18 to show up today for work. 2 showed up from the 5. We went from 100 people to 2. Okay. And so this is what's really happening in the real world, in my very real business, that you would think, hey, I'm paying a decent salary here for you to come in and do this house cleaning, right? I mean, if you come in and you're efficient and you're a good cleaner, you should be making about $20 an hour. It's better than minimum wage. Minimum wage right now is what is it, $13 an hour here in
What?
Florida? Yeah.
It's $15 an hour up here in Michigan.
It's 15 in New York too,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we got 2 of those crazy governors up here.
We're inching towards $15 an hour. So every year it goes up basically. And soon we're going to be at $15 an hour as well, right? But it just goes up every year. But here's the thing is that I'm talking about people who are making beyond that, right? So when you get ramped up and you've been cleaning for a while, you should be able to make, $20 or so an hour. And I mean, we can literally not hire fast enough to even keep up with the demand for the actual cleaning.
Sterling, you got some yellow gloves and an apron?
It sounds like people got more money than they know what to do with. I mean, I'm being serious. I don't think I don't think people are hurting enough to go and do jobs that they wouldn't want to pay. I remember, years ago when the economy wasn't all that great, I went and did whatever job that I could before I got into SBA. And I just don't think we've reached to that point yet. I think, we're allowing people to make too much money doing other things. And I think once these tariffs go into play, we get more jobs here in America. We get more people that need jobs because we're cutting the government. Those jobs will all be filled.
I genuinely hope that that is the case. Like I said, I haven't really seen any proof that we're necessarily moving in that direction thus far. It's early days, right? I mean, we haven't really seen what potentially these tariffs and things could do in terms of impact. But just saying that, yeah, I mean, the hiring thing and people wanting jobs and claiming that they want jobs and actually having the ability or the will to work the jobs are all very, very different things. But
I know a
we can
couple
move on.
people that would be good in a maid's outfit. Austin, Cam, Chris, Alan. Get them to go clean some houses.
Right. There you
No,
go.
seriously, we're gonna yeah. If this SBA lending things get taken away from us, you never know. We could all be cleaning houses someday.
Hey, and you know what? Whatever pays the bills, because if you do have a family at home, if you got a family at home, you got mouths you got to feed, you go out and do whatever it takes to keep that household together. I've been there. I've done it. Trust me. That's what you do. I watched my mom go through that for 20 years, working 3 jobs that she did not want to do, but she did that to keep food on our table. So I get it.
With the possible increase with the new tariffs, do you think that the SBA should consider a temporary relief program like such as loan deferments or alternative financing for businesses that are affected? But Ryan was like, if you own a business here, you should be able to figure it out. But then some people may need financial advice or they may need to call their lender, or like, do you expect anybody to reach out to you guys?
I think they'll probably reach out. I mean, look, if you're experiencing financial hardship and you need some relief on your government guaranteed loan, reach out to your lender and see if they can work something. That just goes across the board, right? I mean, we're not supposed to be heartless, stuffed shirts, but there are some out there. We're supposed to be helping the customers. We're supposed to be pro business. We're supposed to be pro job creation and job retention. So we're supposed to be helping out in those regards. Otherwise, what are we doing in the SBA world, right? Because
Right.
that's the spirit of the program, as they say.
Spirit of the program.
Maybe the SBA should consider something along those lines for people who are detrimentally impacted by tariffs. I mean, it's such a hard thing. It's not as easy as it is with a disaster where it's like, hey, there's a set disaster relief area, or with COVID, it was like, hey, the entire country was impacted here. I mean, maybe they could think about certain industries. That's something that the SBA has obviously done before, where they knew that certain industries during COVID time were impacted more than others.
Yeah,
So,
like
maybe they
restaurants.
say, hey,
Yeah,
yeah, like restaurants, for example, is a perfect example of that. So, I mean, maybe they identify some industries that are going to be hit really hard by these
yeah.
tariffs, and maybe
Based on
that they
like
do,
NAICS code, that makes
yeah,
sense.
just based on NAICS code exactly. And do you just say, hey, maybe these are some industries where we would be willing to maybe lend you a little bit of money.
But that should go through like the EIDL process.
Correct, exactly, 100%. Yeah, it should be directly through SBA.gov or through FEMA or whoever, and basically, you go directly to them for relief. I mean, you can reach out to your SBA lender as well if you are in a situation. I mean, I do think that that's what you should do. If you can't make your loan payment, you need to make your bank aware of your inability to make your loan payment as soon as possible, so that they could potentially work with you. But I wouldn't think that your bank is going to offer anything to you. If you are impacted and you need help, you need to reach out to your bank and be the proactive one, because, to be honest, it's not really on the bank to reach out and offer any type of a deferment or something along those lines.
All right, guys, great episode. Thank you for giving me your opinions and insight on the recent changes. They keep coming, and we're going to keep giving out information to all of our listeners. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Go ahead, like, subscribe, watch our whole family of shows, SBA Today, Art of SBA Lending Podcast, and send your topics and suggestions over to the BDO Show at artofsba.com. And we'll see you next time.